Alderman Ames. Here. Alderman Catalano. Alderman Curiali.
Here.
Alderman Jacob.
Here.
Alderman Messina.
Here.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Here.
Alderman Sosmarsky.
Here.
Alderman Wood.
Here.
Declare a quorum. We got approval of minutes, March 10, 2020, Public Health, Safety, Judiciary, and Ethics Committee minutes. Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You have two reports and recommendations. The first one is agreement with Flock Safety to approve the ALPR camera system throughout the city. Deputy Chief Freeze, you take that?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So the approval request before you is amount not to exceed $69,250. This was approved in the CIP portion of our budgeting season. Just want to give you a quick overview. I have Mr. Dan Murdoch with me from Flock Safety to answer any technical retention type questions, and he's also going to provide you with a map of the locations where we propose to place these cameras. After about 4 years of studying these systems and looking at the viability and the usefulness, we finally came to a decision that Flock was the company to go for. We're seeking the purchase of 23 cameras to be placed strategically throughout the city of Wooddale. They would capture license plate data and vehicle recognition of almost every vehicle entering the city. No data from the cameras is tied to any Secretary of State license plate information. All it does is take a picture of the license plate, the color, and the make of the car. 99% of those would be the back of the car, and you probably would not even see the driver, for those that were concerned about that. The cameras will be solely used for criminal investigations by the Wooddale Police Department and only the sworn members of the department. Each plate inquiry run by an officer requires a case report number, their login information, and a tracking case specific. So it has to have a criminal investigation tied to it for them to even log in and run a license plate. In the past 2 years, DuPage County has seen an increase in the use of stolen or carjacked vehicles to commit various other crimes, to include burglary, armed robbery, and other serious offenses in DuPage County. We hear about it every day on the news, where these criminals are coming out. They're using stolen cars, either taken from dealerships or carjacked in the city of Chicago or outlying areas. So this is a main concern to prevent this. The use of the cameras in and around Wooddale has increased the identification and apprehension of these types of criminals. Currently, almost every town surrounding the city of Wooddale is currently using an LPR system for this purpose already. Also, in the past 3 years, our detectives have used the existing access to Flock and another vendor to solve several crimes just in Wooddale by the use of outside agency cameras. Just in the last month, using one of the features of Flock, we were provided a color and make and an out-of-state license plate, not actually the number, just that it was an Indiana plate involved in a retail theft at one of our stores in Wooddale. We were able to use the technology of Flock to run the make, model, and color of the car only and find the suspect vehicle on a camera in Bensonville 10 minutes after the theft. With that information, we were able to identify the offender within 2 hours. So it became very helpful to us. In another recent case, detectives used Flock data on a known burglary suspect vehicle to identify areas in which he frequented in the west suburbs. Within days of the burglary here in Wooddale, and information obtained and passed along to other investigators from other towns, the suspect and the vehicle were located. He was arrested in a nearby jurisdiction with a loaded firearm and a substantial amount of narcotics on his person. Our detectives went over and interviewed him and subsequently got a confession to our store burglary in Wooddale just 2 weeks ago. The LPR system uploads a hot list provided to them by the state of Illinois every morning. That hot list contains wanted vehicles, people with warrants, missing persons, which we've used in the past, as well as any wanted for investigation type vehicles. Nothing else is put in there for any reason. The reason we want to put the cameras at locations strategic to vehicles entering the city of Wooddale, that might be a question that comes up, is if we do get a vehicle that's hit for a wanted vehicle for, let's say, a burglary investigation, we can anticipate the movement of the vehicle based on where it's going. Let's say it's going westbound Irving Park from the area of Pine. our officers can then deploy their resources into all the retail areas, storefronts, or if need be, the residential areas. So we're gonna know when that car enters our town almost immediately. The officers will get an indicator in their mobile car computers almost automatically of the make, model, and plate number. Our policies that are in place now require them to verify that that information is current by using the Secretary of State system. In 1 year period, last year, 2021, a nearby agency, which is a little bit bigger than us, they have about 47 cameras in place. They detected in a 1 year period 47 stolen cars entering their jurisdiction. A total of 19 of those cars were recovered with arrest made, and a majority of those operating the stolen cars were suspected of committing or about to commit other crimes within the jurisdiction. And as I said, just in closing, I'm going to turn over to Dan. The one study we did with a competitor for Flock in 2019, we would be able to cover one intersection, that was Wooddale and Irving. The price quote on that at the time for those cameras, just for that intersection, was over $150,000. And I'm sure that's gone up since. With that, I'm going to turn over to Dan Murdoch from Flock, who'll go over some of the ins and outs and technical side of it. Dan?
Sounds good. Well, first of all, I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to learn a little more about Flock. Basically, what I plan to do is kind of give you a little background on Flock, where we came from, who we work with in the area. I'll jump into some live reads here in the Chicagoland area, so you can actually get a feel for how your law enforcement team would use it, as well as see what they would see when they're getting hot ones. And then go over what, how the pricing breaks down. And if anyone's any questions during this, please stop me and I'll try and clarify anything. Does that sound like a plan? Awesome. Well, first of all, just a little background on Flock. As a company, we're a little bit more than 5 years old. And we came into being because our owner and CEO, a guy named Garrett, he was head of his own homeowner association in a neighborhood outside of Atlanta. And they ran into issues, people come to the neighborhood, check for unlocked cars, and steal some out of cars, which is a pretty common crime. I'm sure it happens in Wooddale. They reached out to their local PD, a detective came out and asked them, did anyone see anything? Does anyone have a Ring doorbell camera? Any video at all? And unfortunately, no one saw anything, no one had anything to tell the detective, and he was a miracle worker. So unfortunately, that crime went unsolved. But he did tell him if he had a license plate, they'd be really helpful to his investigation. So the HOA went online to go look up LPR and found about $27,000 to buy a brand new plate reader, get it installed, run the power, run the like the whole 9 yards. I mean, this is crazy. But Garrett, he happened to be an electrical engineer by trade, and he built his own license plate reader in his garage. Stuck in the front of their subdivision. It was like one of those one way in, one way out type deals. They had the exact same crime happen a couple weeks later. He was able to filter out all his local residents. Came back with 2 rogue plates, which he gave to the PD, who did a quick investigation, recovered some stolen items, and a light bulb went off and says, I think I got a business here. And he basically started selling his homemade plate readers to HOAs and businesses in the Southeast, and the company grew. And a couple of years in, a sheriff's department in Texas reached out and asked if they could buy some for the county itself. That sheriff helped him get hooked into something called the NCIC database, which is the National FBI's database for stolen vehicles, warrants, things like that. And we expanded law enforcement. Now, the big difference between what Flock created and any other LPR system on the market at the time was they were all using infrared light as their base of the technology. So the way that LPR had worked since like the 80s is you either hung a camera at the side of the road or strapped it to a squad car, and it streamed infrared light all day. And then anytime a metal license plate would pass it, it would reflect that back, and that's basically how it was reading the raised numbers off the license plates. But to use that, you had to know what license plate you're looking for. It had to be on some sort of list. Now, Garrett didn't really have a background in law enforcement or anything like that, and he basically built a very high-powered trail camera. Now, the way these guys work is they're motion capture. So anytime something moves in front of here, it's going to take a bunch of pictures. They wrote machine learning over the top for it to be able to identify what was a vehicle and read the license plate off of it. But once he did that, he's like, I got to picture the whole vehicle here, so like, what color is that vehicle? And is that a car or is it an SUV? Plus, was that a Chevy or was that a Ford? It made all those things filterable. So basically, overnight, we took this technology from being something where you had to either know what vehicle you're looking for, it had to be on some sort of list or something, to now, you just have to have a witness say, I saw a black F-150. Then your law enforcement team is going to be able to go back to the cameras, search for all the black Ford trucks, and work backwards to the license plate. So that's really the big jump forward here in technology that we're talking about. The other big innovation of Flock is that we are a fully vertically integrated organization, which means there is no resellers or third parties or anything like that during this process. So you would just deal with Flock all the way through. We design the hardware and the software ourselves in Atlanta. We assemble this camera ourselves in Wisconsin. I'm the sales rep. I live over in Brookfield. I come around the state and try to set up cameras. The techs who install the cameras do ongoing maintenance. Those are Flock employees. They roll out of Bolingbrook. So we are going to come out. We will survey the land. We'll call 811. We will drop the poles in place, get it all set up. If you ever have an issue with the camera, we roll a tech, we try and fix the camera. If the camera itself is busted, we hang a brand new camera, no cost to the city. So one of the big innovations here is that you are not buying this camera from Flock. Your city is buying the data coming out of the camera, which we sell for $2,500 per camera per year. So there's a straight budgeted item. There is no one-off prices. There is no something like a cable bill or anything like that. You know the exact price that you're paying for this camera system. Does anyone have any questions about any of that? I know I threw a lot of information. Yep.
Yeah, I had going back a little bit to when the deputy chief was speaking. Is there a way to get a report from other towns around us to see what was the plus and minuses of installing theirs? Like, did their crime go down? Did their crime go up?
I've had conversations with almost every town in DuPage County that has Flock or a similar, and it's been nothing but success. The first one that went up in the area was Yorktown Mall in Lombard, and I think their first 2 weeks, they couldn't keep up with the hits of vehicles that were coming in and out of the mall committing crimes.
Second part of the question was, how long does that data stay in there?
So the internet and cellular are built into the camera and it's part of your cost. That's built in 2500, and every capture is stored on Amazon, CJIS certified Amazon web servers. So every read that's made is sent up to the cloud and is stored there for 30 days. 30-day retention is in line with the recommendation from the Illinois Secretary of State. So every capture is stored for 30 days. Your law enforcement team can pull off any image that they want after they do a search. But after 30 days, if law enforcement is not deemed an image part of an active investigation, it's purged and it's gone. So
Go ahead. You'll have a question in a minute.
So we've worked with civil liberty groups to design a more, it's called palatable LPR system. Like the ACLU is never going to say you should have an LPR system, but there are really three things that they think pose a real threat to civil liberties. And one is the forever database. Just because you passed a camera sometime 2 years ago, you're still sitting in a database somewhere, that's not how Flock works. 30 days, it's not a part of an active investigation, it's gone. Two, there are a lot of LPR companies that are basically selling cameras to cities, but they own the data, and then we'll repackage it for like insurance companies, or like analytics companies, things like that. But with Flock, you own the data, not Flock, so we cannot resell this data anyway. So we're not turning your citizens into a product. And three, we are not pulling any PII data from the Secretary of State's office. So we are not like saying that white Chevy SUV is Greg James. We are saying that is a white Chevy SUV with this plate. Your law enforcement team already has the tools to go see who owns that vehicle, but Flock is not compiling that data.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. Couple questions. I'll want to hit on some of the questions Alderman Zmarsky mentioned. So this is hosted in Amazon, AWS,
Yep.
cloud?
They're CJIS certified servers.
That's one of my questions. But are they FedRAMP or state ramped? Are you either? Do you know if those clouds are either FedRAMP or state ramped?
So they're on dual redundant servers, but they are the CJIS certification is a law enforcement designation.
Yeah, I know it is. Yep.
Yeah,
But it's not FedRAMP or state ramped
I do not know
compliant.
the answer to that.
Okay. So that's a lot of the data. So you talked about PII data.
Yeah.
So I work with a lot of federal agencies, and I know that everything has to be on the cloud, FedRAMP compliant with the federal agencies. The equivalent now in the state is state ramp, right? The other thing with AWS, from what I understand, is that they do, and I sell software. So oftentimes people want the term that'll say exclude third party, which means you can host it in the cloud, but you're not putting it in Amazon. So I don't want that license. Some of the license that's not an Amazon cloud, it should be in what we call GovCloud, right? Which is like another layer, more stringent. So there's just a little concern there. Not the end of the world, because I would imagine if you went back to your engineer, you talked about the data that's being transmitted out is technically not PII. It's just the make, the model, right?
Yeah.
Do you know if that data is encrypted in transit back? So you said the data comes out of the camera.
Right.
Is that data encrypted, which means if we were hacked, could
Right.
somebody get that data, even if it was just license plates
Yeah.
and a black card?
You know, I don't have the information to anything beyond about the transmission data that it's sent via cellular, so it'll either be FirstNet, AT&T, and Verizon, and that is being sent to the Amazon, CJIS certified Amazon web server, and then your law enforcement team is able to access that via username and password, and then pulling back from the cloud. But-
It'd be an important question, Deputy Chief. I definitely would want to know if the data is encrypted
Okay.
in transit, going from the camera to our database.
Got it.
And then I was looking at there's a couple questions, sorry, do you mind if footage, so would the plan be that you would have the footage and then you would, PD would follow up on those leads on any of those vehicles? I know there would be a little bit more stringent, like black Ford F-150, right, with a half plate, let's say. What if there were like 4 or 5 cars that match that?
Coming through town, then
Yeah, that
maybe
were
we're
coming
wanted.
through town, would you,
So that has to be verified visually by the police officer and then through the use of their lead system to run the plate to see if in fact that plate matched what the hit was for. And they have to do that before any enforcement action whatsoever.
okay, so what if there was a partial plate though, like where you weren't sure, and there was like three of the same car, same color, Ford F-150, black is pretty common, I mean,
Go ahead.
So, you're kind of conflating two different aspects of what Flock does. One is the real-time alerts. So that is if it sees a license plate that is that has either been flagged by other law enforcement agencies, is on the amber list, something like that, that will send out a real-time alert. That is matching up the exact plate number and state to sound the alert. The second side of it is the searching for investigations. Because in an investigation, if someone says, I saw a red car, you don't know what the plate is yet. So law enforcement is basically going back and finding the red cars, kind of start the investigation from there.
yeah, I figured it was an investigation question.
Yeah, so those
Rather
are,
than, I didn't think it was your technology, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't find ourselves in a heap of
Go ahead, Deputy.
Thanks to the chief, I found the answer to the other question.
encryption,
Yes.
okay,
End-to-end AES 256 encryption, highest standard in computing.
great,
All data is secured, is stored securely in the AWS government cloud.
government cloud.
Yes.
That wasn't the answer I was looking for, so Azure, okay, or excuse me, AWS Gov Cloud, okay, great,
And
that's perfect,
I think we're there.
That's great.
Thanks, Chief.
Could I ask one last question?
Yeah.
About pricing? On the proposal in front of us, there was some additional line items around advanced search. So we would like to know what that is, and then professional services, is that through, I know you alluded to it, but just to confirm, is that professional services through FROC, or is it through a third party?
no, all this is through, Flock owns all the installation here.
Okay.
So there are 4 different line items on there. One is the camera, the yearly search for the cameras.
Yep.
One is the standard installation, which is on any road that isn't an IDOT road.
Okay.
You have 3 IDOT installations, which IDOT has a higher level of what they mandate when doing an installation. So it takes more. It's a thicker pole. There's more concrete involved. So there's a higher price point for it to do those. Flock owns the permitting for both DuPage County, the city, which we'll get city permits, right away permits from you, and for IDOT. We own the whole permitting process. We handle that all the way through as well.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? Peter?
Yeah, and maybe I misunderstood. So you said it wasn't alive, so if, say, a bank robbery just occurred and they had a license plate and it came through Wooddale, would we be notified right away, or we don't have that, you don't have that data, this is not live?
Deputy Chief? Oh.
The latency is 5 to 15 seconds. So very near real time. But in the situation that it is a bank robbery, so if it's a bank robbery with a plate that's never been flagged before, no one in law enforcement has put that into the system yet as this is the license plate you need to be looking for. That would not flag because no one in law enforcement has deemed it. But if, let's say it is a vehicle's been involved in other bank robberies and your department has flagged this as we want to know when this vehicle comes into town, they can create their own custom hot list, or it might be on a state or federal list, then it would flag for you.
Just to follow. Now, as something happens, It updates the same day, or before, I think the other cameras updated, we had to update it in the morning from the system?
So we get the hot list once a day. We
Okay.
do have the ability to enter vehicles into the hot list manually as a department.
Okay.
So if we don't wanna wait till the morning and we get a stolen car from, let's say, the Jewel lot, our supervisor is gonna be authorized to enter that in as a stolen vehicle, contact Wooddale Police Department. So then we'd also be able to start seeing where that car is hitting, with the cameras right now, anywhere in the region.
Okay. So I guess final question, where's the data? Is it coming from the Secretary of State then, every day, or?
So, there are four lists that are native to the system. One is the Illinois leads list, which comes from the Illinois State Police. That's uploaded every morning at 8 a.m. There is the NCIC list, which is the federal list, which comes in every 6 hours. There is the Amber alert list, which is real time. So as soon as an Amber alert goes in, that automatically feeds the flock, and then your custom hot lists, which you can add whenever.
Sorry, one final question.
Yep.
Now, are you guys doing that, or do we have to do something?
Flock handles all that.
You, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
No problem. Except for the custom hot list, you have to do your own.
You guys may have answered this question, but do you enter the citizens of the town's license plates in there? I mean, like you said, he was doing a purge or something, like purging the system, I mean, to know that, no, it wasn't a homeowner, or wasn't, maybe it was the homeowners association you were talking about, they said they took all the homeowners and the homeowners.
Yeah, so like
So we don't do that
at the
for
very
the
beginning
city.
here, he had the,
Okay.
there's only like 10 houses.
I didn't know if we just do that in the city too, since we already got everybody's information for their plates, stickers, all
No,
that.
we would not.
Okay, that way to verify it wasn't that car, so, okay. Any other questions? Mr. Woods?
Yes.
What is the extent of the filtering of that camera system? So we touched on, was a black Ford F-150, right? We picked up 3 letters. Was it a white driver, black, male, female? Can we distinguish anything beyond that, or are there any other filters or capabilities beyond?
So I can show it to you real quick.
Sure.
But we are not identifying humans. We are not doing anything around facial recognition. We are not identifying sex or race or anything like that of the actual driver. This is all the physical vehicle itself.
What could we?
This flock system will not do that.
Okay.
So when your team logs in, this is kind of the landing page. Now I've got a couple demo cameras in here, but your network would be whatever your cameras that they've purchased and any of the surrounding neighborhoods that have shared with you. So, but I'm just gonna throw in a demo here. I'm gonna grab every vehicle that went up and down Cicero Avenue here in the last couple of hours. So click in here. This is the quality of image capture that we're talking about here. And you can scroll down and see all the different vehicles here, and we'll give you the details. This is a white Volkswagen sedan, blah, blah, but you're doing your investigation, and what type of vehicle you want me to look for?
Go ahead.
Lexus GXL, what's your car name? 460?
I said Cicero. So okay, we'll grab all the cars, we'll grab all the
Oh, yeah, motorcycles.
all the
Golf carts too?
Lexuses. A, B, C, D, F, G, Lexuses. So in a matter of seconds, we're gonna go from however many vehicles it was down to the 17 Lexus cars that were on the road.
You said you could purge that into a color too, right? You could just say
Yep.
red
Oh yeah,
Lexuses?
so and then come down here and let's say it was, they were looking for a black one, but you know, a lot of people, they say it's black, but sometimes it could be dark gray. You can do multiple filters in here without rerunning the whole search.
It's Sandra.
Sandra.
Yep. So,
What were you doing at Cicero Avenue?
Your silver Lexus came up.
yeah.
Flea market
Okay.
still open.
The second one.
What are you doing over
So-
at Cicero?
So that's what these guys look like during the day. This is what they look like at night. So, go back to 2 o'clock this morning. 4. So this is from the morning here. So, There is infrared light built into the camera itself to highlight that metal license plate. And we're still giving you that this is we believe it's a brown Chevy SUV. Anytime, we will flag anything to you that we are less than 90% confident on. But we've picked this car up, and this is just on my network, 10 times in the last 30 days. So they'll be able to click in and see any of the day reads over those last 10 days as well to kind of confirm what this looks like. Now, this is all part of the base package here. There are 3 additional searches that are part of the advanced search package, which is on your sheet. The first one is multi-geo. And this crosses not only your cameras, but all the cameras that are being shared with you. So let's say you've had, this is really good for like Cadillac converter theft. There's like 2 or 3 crimes that look really similar, but there are no leads yet. Put in the cameras, put in the time frames, and we'll show you any vehicles that showed up at all those locations. So like who keeps popping up at the crime scenes. 2 is convoy detection. So there are a lot of scenarios where someone will drive out of Chicago, drop off 2 or 3 people, they all steal vehicles and they all head home. So if you guys can identify one of the license plates involved, put that in. We'll show you any vehicle that passed multiple cameras 30 seconds before or after that vehicle. So who's driving around together? And this is really powerful for, especially if one of your cars gets stolen, but before they dump the vehicle, a lot of times those offenders are driving around with acquaintances that aren't driving stolen vehicles. So kind of identifying who those people are. And third is only on the cameras that you guys have purchased, but it's reverse image lookup. So maybe you get a picture of a vehicle from outside the Flock system. Maybe it's a Ring doorbell camera or like a gas station camera, something like that. And you can upload in the system, and we'll reverse image lookup. So like maybe it's like there's something in a truck bed, or there's some damage to a vehicle, something that's kind of hard to build a filter for. Reverse image lookup. So those are the 3 advanced searches.
So just some clear, given the example I gave you, right, there was a unique van and it had a unique marking of like a side panel, a blue side panel for my cameras. You guys could put that in the system, look up and see if on any of the cameras that van was driving around?
We
Wow,
tried.
That's awesome.
We tried.
But
We,
that's for our cameras, so.
You tried on that example?
yeah. I put them to task.
Okay, that's cool. That's pretty powerful.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of with the crimes we get, we're getting Ring doorbell videos, right? For burglaries, things in the neighborhood, but none of these cameras are capturing license plates. This gives us a little bit more to go on and work with. It gets frustrating for us, for me especially, to try to identify what kind of a BMW it is. This helps us out a lot.
So we also, you can also filter by window stickers, bumper stickers, top rack, and back racks as well. So like if someone said, I saw a black SUV with a sticker in this back window. You can come in here, grab all the SUVs with back stickers here, and boom. So you can also take their other descriptors in here.
That's crazy.
Now,
Mayor had your
this
thing
is
first.
This is crime happened. We're going to investigate.
Mayor had a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
We're not taking a question from the mayor, though.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mayor.
So you said advanced searches and then reverse upload or download.
Yeah.
Is that part of this package or?
Yeah, that's part of the advanced search package. Those 3 searches are the advanced search package.
So we're already,
Making a-
that's what we, okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought maybe I was gonna hear the next
Alderman
one.
Woods, you got a question?
Now, that was everything where crime had happened and we went to solve it. The other side of the system is,
Huh?
It's like this package.
I'm sorry? Oh, the other side of the system is the real-time alerts. So as I mentioned before, we are directly integrated with NCIC, Amber Alert, Silver Alert. Now, a hit happens, we can send that out as either a text message, an email. We can put it right in your squad cars or send it to dispatch. So the latency on these is, again, 5 to 15 seconds. So, so like in this scenario here, let's say a missing person passes the camera. Right in your squad car, you get a little, let's say you have Officer Martinez is like writing a report or something in a parking lot. Gets a little bubble and it buzzes that says red sob missing person. Clicks it, gets a picture of the vehicle, picture of the plate, location, direction of travel, and why it pinged off the hot list. So in near real time, your team will be able to respond, either make a stop on that vehicle or drive that vehicle out of town.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you. Back to views of the vehicle, you showed us everything was from the rear.
Yes.
So all these cameras are only pointing at the rear of the cars, none point at the front of the car? There's no location where it would be shooting pictures of the front of the car?
So in your guys' deployment, so this is where you guys, we have worked, your team has identified as the locations that you guys are looking at. So these cameras are motion captured. So anytime something moves, it's gonna take a picture. And we can capture over 100 miles an hour if the vehicle's going away from us. But because it's motion capture, the vehicle's coming at us and it's going faster than like 25, 30 miles an hour. By the time the camera realizes something there, it's gone. So in most cases, these are just shooting downstream. You do have a couple cameras that probably would catch both directions if you wanted to set them up that way. And that would be kind of these ones on like Commerce, Stoneham, Elmhurst, kind of these interior neighborhood cameras. If you want to set them up that way, you can capture a majority of both directions.
Do you have any video
Right by
shooting
you.
the camera at the front of the vehicle? I'd like to see what the camera picks up.
My demo cameras, those are both on
Yeah.
Cicero, which are it's a pretty fast road. I don't have any of the live stuff.
I can say I've viewed several, and it's the lower portion of the vehicle. Usually, you can't identify the driver at all. But ours, like Dan said, ours are all pointed at incoming traffic, so it's going to capture the back of the vehicle primarily.
But-
Probably.
So if it's taking pictures, right? It takes multiple pictures, I'm assuming.
It takes a burst of six pictures. Then the machine learning determines which one it thinks
So
is the
within
best.
that, and knowing that I got stopped by our track camera one time, so I know how, thank you. How good they work. I can't imagine that we don't get a picture of the driver.
I mean, if it's from the rear of the vehicle, you more than likely you will not see.
Well,
it.
from the rear, no,
Right.
but I'm saying, there has to be instances where we're shooting at the front of the vehicle. It just doesn't make sense to me, every camera's pointing
Yeah.
in the opposite direction. And I just wanted to see what that looked like.
I don't really have one off that like.
Yeah.
If I could use the example of Oak Meadows and Route 83, the camera's going to be primarily pointing to westbound Oak Meadows from Route 83 in that traffic lane. I think it's safe to say anything going eastbound is going to be a very quick, very low shot, if at best. I would say that with utmost confidence.
On 83, but we're gonna put these on,
Oak Meadows, off of 83 west of. Yes.
Vice Chair recognizes myself. Don't want to bother you. Has this gone to court on any cases and had any negative or positive results with these photos?
Lots of positive results.
Go ahead, I can't speak to anything myself.
Yeah, so in a vast majority of these cases, they're pled out because the evidence is pretty
They're smart.
striking. But basically you're capturing with a timestamp and all the metadata around what the description of the vehicle was and the license plate with all the metadata of the exact location, and it is viable evidence in court.
Thank you.
Yes. As far as where these cameras are today, in your guys' general area, each one of these little police hats here is an individual camera. So this is where we are today. This week, both Bartlett and Carroll Stream both passed camera packages of their own, so there are more cameras kind of going in over here and over here. But this is where we are today. Anyone who's in the darker, with the darker color, either has their own cameras or has an MOU with Flock to be able to share data and access their neighbors' cameras. Like I said, this is basically where we are at today. And then on a more of a regional level, this is where Flock cameras are across the region. So when you were talking about earlier, utilizing events that happen in your town, if you're looking for vehicles across the rest of the region, it's pretty hard to move in and out here if you are using stolen vehicles and things like that at this point.
If I could just touch on two things real quick. The rear camera, we strategically made that choice too, to focus on that because we want our officers knowing when people are coming into town. We listen to the radio all day and it's, hey, we got a Flock alert on a stolen car coming into Lombard or whatever. So that's one part of it. That's the primary focus of ours because then we'll know if something happens on whatever street, well, the cars that came in there 20 minutes before that, we're gonna have a good picture of that. Second part is, if this identified race of driver, there could be a real issue with people alleging that it's being used for improper purposes. And so I don't think we would want a system that would start, identifying race and some other things. Some other artificial intelligence in stores and things that they use, may be a different story. But if it got to, we could start identifying race of driver, I think we'd have a lot more problems if we started doing that, so.
Flock has made a conscious decision that we are not entering the facial recognition space. And that is not something that Flock is ever going to go down that path.
One last question, I guess. Does that system measure speed too? Like if they say you had a car doing 65 miles an hour, you can get rid of like 70 of those pictures. Only one of them is doing 70 and he's on his way out of town.
So Flock has also made a conscious decision not to enter the ticketing of any sort.
No, not ticketing. I'm just saying, will it know that that vehicle's doing,
That is
not
here-
for a ticket
That is
purpose?
not here today, but that is very much so being worked on.
okay. I mean, it's just like,
No,
if they say the
it's
red car,
definitely- it's a
red car
very
doing
common
70
request.
would get rid of 80 of those cars.
No,
There's only one
absolutely
car.
not. I mean,
You might have to-
crime happened, people tend to go a
Nadine,
little
you
faster,
or
so that's
is that-
definitely
Go ahead.
on the roadmap.
Nadine, go ahead.
Thank you. So what other communities around us have this that we would be able to share or, reciprocate information with?
I could just speak on that. Everybody but Itasca right now.
Your motion.
Bensonville, Elk Grove Village just put in 46 cameras. They're all facing northbound into Elk Grove. Addison, Elmhurst, Roselle, Villa Park. I could keep going. They all have them.
So then you would be able to see their information, they'll be able to see
We do
ours.
currently, yes.
Okay, all right.
We have access to all those.
It's a great resource, thank you.
I would say 80+%
I
of the
did.
share.
Yeah, Peter.
Two things. If we want to add additional cameras at some point, is that an easy thing to do?
Absolutely. It's basically just an addendum to the contract. We would go through the exact same process of installation, same exact price.
Okay, so you don't have to reprogram anything because you're adding additional cameras. And then, so stolen car comes in town, we know it's a stolen car. So that just automatically show up on each squad car's computer, or does that go to dispatch, or how does that work?
Both. So we're working with ACDC right now to get them access and work out some kind of computer issues. But at minimum, it'll go to every squad car that's on duty and working.
Yeah, just to kind of, wrap this up, a couple questions on cost and updates. Cost, right? It's just like the body cams, there's data, right? I know we own storage, it's being hosted in the cloud. Do we incur, or does the city have to incur any of that storage cost?
It's all included in that $2,500.
That is included. Good business model. Because after the first year, you guys, we have the recurring, so I was looking at it, like, what are we actually paying? So it's not really a maintenance cost year over year, that's $60K. That is literally,
The idea behind our business model is basically everything is rolled in that $2,500.
Yep.
So like you are, it's basically giving the board an exact amount of what this is going to cost. So like,
what about upgrades? That was part of my question. So support, upgrades, that's all included
Yep.
when they're pushed out?
yep. So mounting,
Beautiful.
the hosting, ongoing software enhancements, all that is wrapped into this.
Okay.
Your contract is a 2-year agreement with an option to renew at the same cost for another 2 years. So you're locking in the price for 4 years, and at the 2-year mark, you can decide. And if you guys decide for whatever reason it didn't work out as planned, at the end of the 2 years, you decide no more. We come and pick up the cameras. There's no exit fee.
One final question and then a motion. I imagine most of these cities have an administrator. How does that look like as far as training those individuals up? Is that part of this cost?
Yep, so yeah, there's an account, you will have an account manager, he's actually an Elgin police officer for 8 years before coming over to Flock. He will either come in and do a training, some offices do train the trainer model with a recording.
Okay.
Whoever is are you the main admin on the account? Yeah, so you can create different user groups, so like, maybe the detectives have something slightly different than the patrols. When they hire a new detective, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just add him to that user role, and he's cranking.
Okay. And then one comment and then motion. just to reiterate, this is, of course, not a fix-all. We've had a couple people ask that question, they're worried it's reactive, not proactive, because I'm sure this will come up in a later conversation this evening. Car stolen, it's already stolen. Individual struck, he struck. House is burglarized, it's already burglarized. What we're talking about is reactive, really helping the investigative piece of this. This isn't going to, yeah, get them off, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd like to, with that said, I'd like to make a motion to move forward with Flock Technologies in the year one total amount of $69,250,
Second.
including a recurring total of $60,000.
Second. Mr. Curcio?
Who?
I keep saying it wrong. Seriously.
Two questions.
We'll just go with Mr. Mike.
Thank you. Is our
Curcio.
IT department involved in this at all?
They do not have to be if you do not want them to be. It's basically running on Flock Cloud, and then you just, anyone can, whoever has a profile just signs in through the internet. So they can do it through an iPad, through a phone, through wherever.
Okay.
It's specifically kind of a plug-and-play type system.
So, and then who has access? Could I have access to this? No?
No.
You're not, they have to be sworn.
Okay, sworn officers. And so who oversees it then within our department?
So it would be me,
You would?
yes. And we have a policy in place right now that places me in charge of monitoring it. Currently, the only people that have access to do inquiries are sergeants, detectives, and command staff. So we'll look to expand that out once the system is up and running, if it's up and running. And, you know, they'll at least have capabilities to get the alerts, but not make the inquiries based on our policy only. But they have to be sworn law enforcement officers.
There's an audit trail by user, by camera, and by network that can be pulled at any time.
Okay.
Mr.
yeah,
Curiali?
One more question.
Sorry.
Do we need any oversight from an outside party, an auditor, or ethics committee, or somebody to make sure that the police department isn't overseeing themselves and?
Deputy?
Well, we have policies in place to prevent things like that from happening. We do regularly run audit reports to see what license plates are being run. They have to enter a valid case report number and their name and badge number for each inquiry made on a license plate. So we know that for sure. Outside of that, that may be beyond my scope.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we get a roll call?
Alderman Ames,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano, Alderman Curriali,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Messina,
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Long way from that garage, young man.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I wasn't the one who made that, but
Let me know when the stock's available. I'm in.
about 18 months.
Don't forget the friends and family. We want the IPO open to us.
I think they call it inside trader.
Not really. It's called friends and family.
Next, we have the Police Department design update, and Chief, you can take that?
Sure, I can take it. Thanks. So just to recap, back in December, we had a design workshop up here, or a PD workflow workshop. Ray Lee is joining me again from FGM Architects just to answer any questions that there are tonight. But essentially, you know, we talked about how the police station was built 30 years ago and how our needs have changed since then. A lot more, our radio room closed. A lot more use of soft interview rooms that we didn't use before for mental health counseling and other things. Changing demographics within the PD, you know, going from maybe one female officer to 25% of our force is female now, and that could change. So a lot of things that have changed, and also the increase in you know, need for state mandated training. So part of this was try to find some better training space for some of our hands-on scenarios to, you know, training. So anyways, based on some of those concerns, we brought in FGM Architects to kind of do an employee-led, how's the Wooddale workflow work now, and what do you guys need? And then based off of that, the employee-led groups, they came up with some recommendations. I think we went through 3 or 4 different iterations to come with kind of a final thought on where we, concept of where we thought we should go. So that was back in December. I know council provided some good feedback on it. One of the things we did talk about is there enough space? And we believe there is for the next 10 to 15 years. The current space that we have will be adequate if we can adjust it, change some walls, open some areas that previously weren't open, and just repurpose some areas that aren't being used fully right now. So we did that in December. We did talk about, it came up as, well, should we go up or should we expand? And as you know, that's getting into the probably $6 to $7 million range, and we're not looking for that. We think with our current space and the proper design of it, we can really set ourselves up for the next 10 to 15 years. And I mean, no one can really know what's going to happen 15 years from now. But so those were kind of the things that were talked about. And we said that we'd come back with some options for council to decide how you guys wanted to proceed in the coming fiscal years. There's nothing in the budget this current fiscal year for construction. So kind of tonight, we wanted to lay out the 3 options that we came up with, get some direction, and depending on that direction, obviously we would have to include into a CIP next year. And then, we would like to start, if anything is approved, looking to go to design this winter and start finalizing some of the plans.
Yeah, just one quick question. When you said space, so say we ever did run out of space, like in 5 years, and we grow faster than you think, and I don't know if this has been done in other communities, but I know right now, like some police departments have like substations, but that's more because of neighborhood policing. But could we also do that just for police officers to have a place to work, like over in Public Works, set up a few offices there, or police departments don't normally do that?
The substation concept it's nice having them into the community and, neighborhoods or areas where there's a high concentration of residents, or some even do it in their local Walmart because they have issues at the Walmart, so they put substations there. So for space needs, I don't know if that would be needed, but I think what we would have to look at, one area that we're not really touching here is the current fitness center, which is one area, but if there was some type of large expansion of the PD, which I don't anticipate in the next few years, but even if there was, we would have to repurpose some of that area and maybe move something like that out to the annex or something. So we'd have to make some adjustments, but I certainly don't see that in the next 5 years. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to see 3 slides here tonight, and I put them in the packet. Well, actually 4. So the first one is kind of the combined final design that we came up with. And really the area we're looking at is, looks like the green arrow isn't working. Let me just step up there real quick just to show everyone. This whole area, nothing is changing. Records, admin offices, investigations, and the lockup. We're not looking to change any of that. We're looking to repurpose some of the current radio room area. We're looking at a citizens report area right off of the lobby, a soft interview area that can be used for our counseling and interviewing victims, quiet room, recovery room for our officers and our okay, I don't know if it's working. Oh, you got it? Okay. There we go. Quiet room and recovery room for our officers, whether they're in between shifts, in between midnight shift and court appearance, whether we have nursing mothers that have to use a room privately. So that's what would be going in here, kind of repurposing the radio room. Beyond that, this would turn into the roll call area with up to 18 locations. A wall that was previously here, and I know we've gone through this before, but I just want to refresh. A wall that used to be here will be removed, which will create some more open space. But roll call would go where the current sergeant's office is. and then the sergeant's office would move over to currently where the patrol area is. And then over in this area is a reconfiguration of current roll call room that would involve report writing areas. We need to have a separate secured area for search warrants and that are done by video now, or arrest warrants that are done by video in front of judges, and/or lineups, which have to be recorded by state law. This area here would be for the CSOs and the PMI division, which the PMI division, there's quite a bit of just being able to spread out and handle their duties and be have their own area. And then we would adjust the hallway that would lead to the current male locker room. Nothing would really change much in the male locker room, except we would go down to 1 shower instead of 2 because we would need to make that ADA compliant. But the significant change would be to the women's locker room, giving us a lot more full-sized female lockers and enough room for them, and then a shower and an ADA seating area. So that's kind of the high-level view. I know we went into it in real detail back in December, but I just wanted to refresh everyone kind of the area we're looking at. So based off of that, FGM had made some recommendations. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mayor. Mayor has a question.
So, Chief, you said, so the sergeants are moving over one space, and you said the patrol officers were in that room right now or something? In there, right?
Yes.
So I didn't hear where you're moving those officers
So
at.
they're moving to this area, which will be a report writing area with 3 locations. And really what happens is, on any given shift, we have a watch commander and we have 3 to 5 patrol officers. Depending on the needs or arrests or what they're doing, we want them out on the road doing their reports. So that's why with the evolution of MDTs and being able to do reports in the field, we would rather have them out in the field doing a report. You know, you might see them parked at a bank or in a neighborhood or at the retail store. They're not just sitting there waiting for something. They actually will do their reports in the car after they've completed something. 3 is plenty. There's actually some agencies that are double our size that they only have 3 report writing areas. So we think this would be adequate for it. It wouldn't be assigned desk to individual patrol officers. Right now, they share with 4 other people at the desk, but it's on different shifts. So we think this would be adequate to handle the station needs that they would have. Ray, any other thoughts on that?
I think basically what we've done is the area that was previously the area for patrol, which was right here, was shared by not only patrol officers, but the CSOs also work there too. So if you kind of imagine this area was kind of moved over to here. And I think what that did was it allowed a lot more better adjacencies for operational purposes, put the shift supervisors right in the heart of the station, right next to roll call. So a lot of the functioning aspects of things in the station actually work a lot better because of that location.
This roll call area too would serve a dual purpose. You'll see this storage off of the side here. All these would be nesting tables that we could push off into there and pull out our pads out of the storage area to lay out in here and actually do more of our hands-on training and scenario-based training in this area. Right now, sometimes we squeeze into the community room and there's not much room, or we'll go up to the fire department, and we're certainly happy to adjust, but we kind of impose on them on strange hours of the night too to get some of our training done. So we can do a lot more in this area. And also this area would be used if we have major crimes, when we bring out other investigators as a central command point. Right now, we will use the community room or roll call, but the current roll call, even last year when we had a major incident, was really cramped for getting all the investigators in the same room, so.
Mr. Wood?
Where are the cells at?
Those are down in here.
You wanna go-
This is the,
you wanna go on
Are
one?
there enough?
oh yeah,
males and
yeah.
females?
So here's the Sally port where you pull in, the booking area, and then we have a holding cell, and then over here is our female cell, and then we have 4 additional cells here, and then upstairs we have a juvenile cell. That would all still remain. We can put females in the other area, but if we have males and females, we do need to separate them. Same thing with adults and juveniles. They have to have sight and sound separation. But no, we're adequate with our lockup facility.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you. The options that we have, the
Yes.
pricing on the options, how current is that pricing?
That's, would you say 10 to 15% since we
Well-
looked at this, or?
Okay, when we presented the numbers, they were based on construction in 2022, just making that assumption. And from 2021 to 22, we actually used about a 6% inflation rate, which is rather high, but last year's inflation rate came closer to 11%. So we're already kind of behind the ball. This year's inflation rate, beginning of the year, I would have told you we probably would be around 6-7%. But since like oil and other things have gone crazy, I think we're going to be closer to 8 or 9%. So given that, we could be somewhere around that, 10 to 15% off right now from the numbers that you've seen.
And these numbers are just the construction numbers, none of the soft costs. This doesn't
I
account for
believe-
architecture, engineering.
See, no, they included the architectural engineering
So
fees
this is
too.
all inclusive?
That's out the door, yes.
Okay.
Okay. We like to provide budgets so, because you need to know the total cost versus just the construction costs. So in our overall budgets, we did include contingencies, okay? And we also have fees, furniture, miscellaneous costs like printing costs, there might be like permitting costs or things like that are also included.
What's the contingency number that you have? in mind?
Contingency amount is, right now, it's 10% of the construction cost, I should say. So,
Thank you.
not in the overall number. So.
Mayor?
So you said everything's inclusive, even the construction supervision?
From the architectural point of view, so like what architects do is what we call construction administration. So we monitor whether it's a general contractor or something like that out in the field. We'll come out like every 2 weeks, make sure that they're doing the job properly, review the payouts, review the shop drawings, review questions during constructions. If there's issues, we also come out during that time. So for our role during construction, that's included. I believe we did assume a construction, like a general contractor would do this. So they would have their own fees, but those are included in their bid.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Sorrentino, go ahead.
Chief, are you familiar with Desmond Rafferty in Elk Grove?
No,
He
I'm
works
not.
in unison with the Elk Grove PD. They have what is known as Elk Grove Cares.
Oh, yeah.
And they have, where you mentioned kind of like a decompression room. They have space there for anybody that they bring in with alcohol use disorder or any substance use disorder. And they have social workers that their responsibility is to bring them from the Elk Grove Police Department and arrange for treatment. And because of that, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars available to them through grants. And the mayor, don't get crazy, gave a $300,000 grant for this cause. And it's been hugely successful. You may want to talk to Desmond.
No, definitely, and we've seen a big explosion of our community-based counseling. We have a in-house counselor that we use on a regular basis. We make referrals to. I know
Sure.
you've dealt with him a
Brian?
little bit. And then with the new CESA Act that's coming and the response to 911 calls and mental health crises, that's going to even change a little bit more. So that's why we did want to go to a dedicated soft interview room that not only for victims, but for those people that, the report writing room's kind of stark cold, and they're just having a place that they can sit and, not be a confrontational with the police sitting across the way too, so.
Okay. Good to be aware of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you. Mr. Murmas, just checking to see if you're following along.
Drew Wade.
Have you guys as staff looked into the affordability of, let's say, the recommendation that you made of phase 2, which is approximately a little over $2 million if I'm adding that up?
Go ahead.
Sure, yeah. Finance Director Wilson and I, together with the chief, we've had lengthy conversations on this. If you remember back at the time during the workshop, we had informed council that even if we wanted to get the ball rolling, you know, as part of this past year's CIP discussions, it just wasn't feasible from a cash flow perspective. Another thing that came up at that workshop, and that's mentioned in the memo, is there was some talk about potentially using TIF funding since the area, the project would be in the TIF boundaries, but unfortunately that would not work for this current TIF that we have set up. So it would be basically out of the CIP. Cash flow would likely allow us to begin this in the out years coming up, next fiscal year probably. So there probably would be some things coming off the books that would allow us to have some cash flow on this. Chief, did you have anything to add with talks with Brad? Or?
No, that pretty much sums it up, but, you know, the last two options that we came up with here was the ability of spreading it out over 2 fiscal years or 3 fiscal years. And Ray, maybe you can touch on that, but we did want to provide as much flexibility without stretching it out 5 years, obviously.
Well, obviously, when we're trying to stretch things out over fiscal years, we're doing this on a couple other projects now for people to span a couple of years. So we have, you know, looked at like phasing, when should design start, when should it be bid, when should like phase 1 construction be done, because obviously your police department probably wants to stay here or have a place to work while we're doing the work, so we can't just tear everything apart. It has to be done over a couple phases. So on previous jobs, what we've done is strategically started at certain times, so we overlap a couple of fiscal years. One I'm working on right now, actually we did design in 1 fiscal year, then we started phase 1 construction, or we bid it kind of at a point in fiscal year 2 where we spanned construction over fiscal years 2 and 3. And that's how they structured that one. And we just work with your finance people on when do you think funding can be available.
Mr. Murmas?
Yeah, so to clarify on our end, what we would do is probably do a lot of the legwork this year, just the beginning legwork, but then the major capital expenditures discussed in this upcoming CIP discussion for expenditures on a large scale for next fiscal year, next May 1. And then whether we do 2 or 3 year phased approach, we should have the cash flow to do a project of this magnitude.
Mr. Woods?
Yeah, okay. So that being said, I'll make a motion to approve option 2 to be programmed into the city's budget and look into how we can economically, feasibly afford this and move forward.
Could you put option 2 back up there so you see it?
So this will be done over 2 phases, over 2 fiscal years.
I'll second that motion.
Looking at 2 and 3, it's really just the phasing.
Correct.
Right? It's the
Correct.
difference between the 2 options.
Correct.
This is, 2 is a little more robust and going to get us to the finish line a little sooner.
Correct.
So there's no difference, you're just taking 1 phase out.
No, they're
Just doing it in 3 phases
3
versus 2
phases
phases.
versus 2, so we're opting for 2 phases versus the 3 phase.
Right, that's what I said.
Yes.
I said they're both the same, it's,
Yes.
one's doing it 1 year less than the other one.
Yep,
Correct.
correct.
All right. Mayor?
I do have a question. So when we do it this way, even though it's 2 phases, when we go out to bid, do we bid the whole thing at once? Sometimes
I would
you
recommend
get better
that.
pricing
Yes, for a larger project,
for a
yes.
larger project, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's, so I wanted to-
So the bidding will be set up in a way that we can span 2 fiscal years,
right, 'cause it's gonna take about 18 months at least, right?
probably.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No other questions? Roll call?
Alderman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Currielli.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
Yes,
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
that passes. Items to be considered future meeting. Well, I've got the squad car purchases to be announced. Anything else to be added? Or want added? No? All right, I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, we're adjourned. Thanks, Chief.
Charles did first.
I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee. Let the minute taker note that the same people are present. First, I'd like to start off with a approval of minutes dated May 12th, 2022.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next up, report and recommendation. Second Avenue. Before we go into a presentation, I did want to read, go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
Yeah, I was gonna read. So, since this is affecting our ward, the subdivision president, again, this came up at a homeowners meeting for the subdivision. This is something that they had asked to be done. So I'll pass this out, but the president of the subdivision wrote a letter. Honorable City Council and Mayor, we are writing to request that the Second Street agenda item be tabled to a future meeting date. Based on some of the data and opinions provided, the project review requires more research and work than anticipated. In order to review the options being proposed, our HOA would like to schedule a special meeting with our residents. Per our bylaws, these special meetings require we provide at least 7-day notice. You are welcome to attend. Additionally, reaching all 85 households in the subdivision has taken longer than we anticipated, but several homeowners informed us that they would like to review the proposals with us. We believe this supplemental data will result in a more accurate and comprehensive report. We would appreciate tabling this matter now for future discussion, and thank you for your understanding of this matter. Respectfully, Tom Lindelof, Woodside, President, Subdivision. Now pass these out to everybody. So with that, I'd actually like to make a motion to table.
Before we do that, I would add, before we put that motion up, two things. The packet was published and made available on Friday, which a resident pointed out to me. On a FOIA request, there's 5 days for a response, and there are some data that they're asking for. So technically, they would never have gotten the data until tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that, or that I included that. And so, since it costs us nothing, people want due diligence, I guess I'll pass it off to you, Alderman Jacob.
Yeah, I would make a motion to table it for this meeting.
I'd second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
So do we need a roll call, or is that?
Alderman Ames.
Opposed?
Alderman Currielli.
Opposed?
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
What's that? Oh, opposed. Excuse me. Sorry for it. Excuse me.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Give them the time, yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
Opposed.
Alderman Woods.
Opposed?
Okay, so this conversation continues this evening? Okay. Glad I took my Xanax. So, if you want to do your presentation, as unfair as it is, please continue on, and then we'll ask questions at the end.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Again, this is the proposed closing of Second Avenue at Spruce Road. A little bit of background here to begin. This project was included and discussed during the fiscal year 23 CIP discussion as an unfunded item. At that time, the council elected to move it from the unfunded programming list to discuss potentially funding it at a future meeting. And then back in March, the council awarded an agreement to HR Green to conduct a feasibility study, the scope of which included identifying several geometric concept plans as well as any new right-of-way needs and impact to drainage or existing utilities, as well as including estimates of probable costs for each alternative, as well as assisting staff with agency coordination with the various agencies that have jurisdiction of this road, and you see them listed there. The summary of those findings, all of the alternatives have varying level of impact to private property costs, as well as existing infrastructure and drainage. The design alternatives all require some amount of new right-of-way or temporary easements for construction.
The various agencies that we spoke to each expressed some amount of concern with closing off their street in regards to how it affects their operations. The most urgent of which is obviously the emergency response times to Spruce Road, which could be potentially negated by some mountable curb and some collapsible barricades, which would be recommended for any design alternative. And if the council elects to proceed with any of the design alternatives in closing off the road, staff would recommend alternative 4, which is the smaller hammerhead design, as it has the most minimal impact of the turnaround options to the neighboring residents, as well as the drainage and infrastructure, and also allows operational vehicles such as snow plows and garbage trucks to execute a turnaround. So going through the alternatives now that were identified, the first alternative is the city standard design for a cul-de-sac, which is a 45-foot radius turnaround to the back of curb. The pros with this design is that it allows the design vehicle, which is a 44-foot fire department pumper truck, to execute a 3-point turn. The cons, it may be difficult to see here, but in your packets you can see that it encroaches very heavily onto the private properties there and would require a significant amount of new right-of-way. Alternative 2 uses the IDOT's Bureau of Local Roads and Streets minimum design standard for a cul-de-sac, which is a 30-foot radius to the back of curb. Obviously, this design is less invasive into the neighboring properties. However, it does not allow a pumper truck to execute a turnaround. The design vehicle in this case...
Pumper truck? Sorry to interrupt you.
It's one of the fire department's larger vehicles. It's the, essentially the one that they have the hoses on that would respond to a fire.
So as you keep going through this, right, your feedback just said it's clear for everybody up here, right? Because I'm going to make sure that everybody at home can hear this loud and clear. Your recommendation that you got was from what department?
My recommendation...
What fire department?
The fire department that we coordinated with was the Wooddale Itasca Fire District.
Mm-hmm. And did you ask them how many calls for service they actually do in the city of Wooddale?
We raised the subject. They didn't give us an exact number. They did say that emergency responses to this area are, relatively minimal compared to all of their call-outs.
Sorry, can you repeat that again, because I want to make sure people hear that at home?
Sure, they did say that, the greatest area of concern was Spruce Road here for response time,
Did you take
which
the
is...
opportunity to call or contact Bensonville Fire Department or Addison Fire Department, who in fact has the majority of the calls for service when you got this feedback and put it in the report?
I did not, no.
Okay. So we took that feedback here, that you have here, and then it was very pointed feedback in here. So once some of the few residents that we could gather to review this put in some pretty slanted language, which, hey, I get it if I'm up here and I don't live and breathe this every day and I'm not ducking cars because there's no sidewalks there, and I'm not watching cars fly by, and I'm not watching cars smash into sidewalks. Yeah, every day, every single day. The fact that they would put this in, and I will be contacting Deputy Chief Joel myself as well, because they don't even go there. They don't even respond. As you said, brain death occurs or begins to occur 4 minutes after someone stops breathing. Someone pointed out the response time to Woodside, if they did respond, was 4 to 6 minutes. So if they are responding, I'm already brain dead. I'm dead. I'm brain dead already. So putting this language in here without due diligence is really, in my opinion, unethical, and I think it's very slanted and unfair. Unfair to the 85 households that didn't get a chance to speak here tonight. So when you put these in, secondly, let me just finish my point. As far as what people had recommended, the few that could actually have 5 minutes to look at it before this was published, was the option for the dead end. Right, which was $47,000, guys. We approved vehicles more than that. So I don't know if my kids' lives are worth that, or someone else's kids' lives are worth that, or 7 out of the 9 homes that were sold in the last 24 months had families. There are no sidewalks there. I beg you to please drive through there. Do your due diligence and drive through the subdivision, and you will see the number of people walking through there. So when they talk about the inconvenience, number one, when you looking at the dead end option, which it says here, plowing and snow, so both an inconvenience to our garbage pickup folks and our snowplow folks. In my 10 years there, and in my 35 years of my neighbor being there, they have never done a three-point turn at Second Street, ever. The plow, please, let me just not tell you, does the plow ever stop at Second Street when they were coming, that would be southbound on Spruce?
Our plows, no.
Okay.
Addison Township, however, plows Second Avenue.
Correct, which is unincorporated Bensonville,
Correct.
not our town.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So Wooddale, which is where we live, and these homeowners that pay these taxes, right? A lot of taxes. We never stop our plow there.
Correct.
Okay. And our garbage trucks, Flood Brothers, do they ever do three-point turns there?
Not at no, they do at the dead end of Spruce, at the cul-de-sac of
So they
Spruce.
continue downward, right?
Correct.
So all these ideas of these three-point turns, unless it's Amazon, that's really the only other people that are being impacted by these three-point turns. Can you list any other vehicles that would do three-point turns on Second Street?
No, the only vehicles that I've identified were snowplows for Addison Township, garbage trucks servicing the unincorporated areas, and possibly, delivery or moving trucks, any
So two homes-
non-residential.
Two homes on Second Street that are unincorporated Bensonville, 2 houses,
Correct.
as opposed to 85 households with about, safely, I'll say at least 100 kids. So that's what the risk mitigation that you guys put into this, some of this feedback, I guess, is Mr. Lindelof put it. Okay. You understand where everyone's where at least I'm coming from, and people reading this and some of this feedback that was put in there? The buses stop literally 50 feet off of 83. They turn right there, and that's it. So there is only 2 houses there. They can turn around and exit out. They can easily go through Oak Meadows. I know everyone wanted to be dramatic in here, but there is no effect by them spending an extra minute to go into the subdivision. And keep in mind, even when Second Street is blocked off, there are still Butternut. It's still an entrance in and out, which I know the fire department said was one other option. And then coming off Oak Meadows, which had you contacted the fire department and ambulatory service that services 95% of the calls in Woodside, they would have told you they'll enter and exit out of there. That's the reality, right? So I would keep going. I hope you understand how hard it was to read this and to actually share this with people, because please continue.
I understand your point, and just as a general comment, my job, as I saw it, was to gather information and present it to council to make a decision. I don't have a horse in the race either way. It has no impact on me whether the road's closed or not.
Yeah, I just hope you would have known what service is what, right?
Right, and as far as the reward versus benefit, risk versus reward rather, when it comes to the residents, I would think that you would speak, much more eloquently and accurately about their take on this than I could, and that wasn't included in the scope of the feasibility study, which is why there's not a lot of that included in the memo. My task was to reach out to the various agencies, and I don't want to speak for Deputy Chief or the fire district, but the question posed to them was, if we were to close down Spruce Road at Second Avenue, how would it impact your operations? And that was his response. I think if you look closely at any of those points, there's also a counterpoint in the fact that the fire department did agree that, if we use mountable curb and collapsible bollards, it wouldn't have that much of an impact on their response times. So I think for all, it's just a matter of, I guess, inconvenience, these other agencies.
I just would have hoped we would have done calls for service, like I said, from the actual real agencies that service it, right? And these three-point turn inconveniences, we've never done a three-point turn in those areas, so suddenly they've become an issue. Your plows have never done a three-point turn at that intersection, nor
Right.
have, right? So it's,
To that point, again, these are other agencies, the township that services Second Road. If this was closed down, they would have to execute a three-point
It's for
turn.
the 2 houses.
That's the only reason
Okay.
why the information's included.
okay, please continue. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this it doesn't accommodate a turnaround for a pumper truck. The design vehicle here is a 39-foot school bus, which is a moot point for a reason I'll get into later on. Alternative 3, the larger hammerhead design. This is 120-foot length. This is a pretty typical design for such a turnaround. Again, it allows for a pumper truck to execute a turnaround but encroaches pretty heavily into the neighboring properties and has impacts on utilities and drainage. Alternate 4, which would be the recommended design if we were to proceed with closing off Spruce at Second Avenue at Spruce. It's a shorter length of 60 foot. It would allow for operational vehicles such as snowplows and garbage truck to execute a turnaround, and there's very minimal new right-of-way needed. It's mostly contained within the existing right-of-way. Alternative 5 would be just a dead-end design. It's obviously the least expensive of the alternatives, but it does not allow for non-residential vehicles to execute a turnaround, so it creates an operational difficulty for them.
Can you repeat that? What?
Non-residential vehicles such as garbage trucks and snow plows and
Burglars, bank robbers,
what have you.
okay. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
They go to all other parts of the community, too.
They do.
That sounds the best of everything you put up
So
there
I,
so far.
I would just like to add, sorry, please, and I'll pass it off, this is the exact example I gave you from Elmhurst, to a T. I think Alderman Jacob provided some stuff as well. We'll take more questions. Go ahead, Alderman Woods. I was gonna call you Alderman Ward.
I'll make a motion to approve design option 1.
Say that again.
I make a motion to approve design option 1.
I'll make a motion to approve dead end.
Wait, there needs to be a second on his. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Put that one back up.
If you can see, the light blue line here would be the new curb section, and this area here where the truck turn exhibit would be the new roadway. This lot here is privately owned by this resident, and this lot here is privately owned by another unincorporated resident.
Which would mean, maybe, sorry, go ahead, you would answer it.
Even, I just don't want to throw a wet blanket on it, but anything we do out here, I think, well, even the dead end, just because the Wooddale City Council wants to do this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. You still have to have negotiations with private landowners for the easements, right? Number one. Number two, township sign off, obviously. So no matter what we do, we're still going to need some other approvals before we do anything out there. Just want to make sure everybody is aware of that.
Alternative 1, which was the highest one, or alternative 4, or you said 5, the dead end, which is what I had been aiming for. Would Alderman Woods' motion of alternative 1 allow for the turnaround of the snowplow? Not that I care to cater to them for 2 houses, but.
Yes, it would. It accommodates the largest design vehicle, which was the 44-foot fire department pumper truck, to execute a 3-point turn. So garbage trucks and snowplows would have no issue executing a turnaround. But
you know in other towns that have dead ends, because I think I know the answer to this, typically when there's that dead end option, which is option 4, the snow just gets plowed right there and stops there, and they just reverse out. Would that just be the case? Is that the really inconvenience piece of it?
unless we wanted to maintain it as an emergency access point as well, having the mountable curb and the collapsible bollards. We'd have to, speak with Addison Township as to how they would maintain that. They might have to drag it out and then push it to the side in either direction. But typically, on a dead end such as that, yes, you would just push it to the dead end.
So as far as, just as far as, I'm looking long-term here, as far as, I know people have asked, they actually thought it was gonna be done last summer, and I explained to them the process. Option 1, which Alderman Woods is motioned, is that will require us buying property, which, as we've talked about, could drag this out further, correct?
More than likely, yes.
Like, literally, if I could just put bollards in there like you see in a warehouse, that's what I would do, and I would buy no property. So it's not the aesthetics, or I think it's truly just to block off access. But I don't know how this works, Mayor. His motion was made, and then Alderman Sorrentino made a motion. We have a motion and a second. For option 1.
One.
Okay, so are there any more questions on?
I have one question on
Alderman
option
Sorrentino?
1.
Sure.
And looking at that design, with that blue line going further, would that make the entrance and exit larger for cars to get in and out quicker?
You're saying to, if they would be able to access Spruce Road?
Yeah, I'm talking like Bad Boys. Could Bad Boys get in and out of there quicker?
No.
Because of this wider area now?
They would not be able to access Spruce Road from Second Avenue. This would all be 6-inch barrier curb, there would be bollards placed in here, and there would be grade separation off the edges. So they would not be able to get into the Woodside subdivision.
And again, we would have to acquire some property still from those two houses that are there.
Correct. We'd have to verify with legal, but any right-of-way that's not under city jurisdiction, it may have to be annexed as well. But yeah, it's seemingly, I mean, you're taking up a significant portion of property here. The resident may insist that you buy the entire lot. That would be a discussion that would have to take place.
Yeah. Anyways, Alderman Jacob?
What is a collapsible bollard exactly?
It's a plastic bollard that's either on a spring-loaded or a breakaway base, so an emergency vehicle could drive over it if needed, and it would spring back up, but it's still a deterrent to, regular vehicles not to drive through.
That was my question. Could a regular vehicle or say like a pickup truck drive through that or no?
They could, yes.
So get a car.
But it's a deterrent. You don't want to damage your vehicle. It's only meant for use in emergency situations.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
I don't know if you've seen one, but over at the reservoir, they have one for the bike path. Because sometimes the county drives up to the thing, but there's one there.
And there's one at Oak Brook Mall, too. That has it. Alderwoman Ames?
Thank you. So if I'm understanding this correctly, for alternative one, the estimated cost is the $166,570, but that does not include purchasing whatever property from those homeowners. So that cost is really, I mean, what does that even include? We're not talking about buying the property, which that cost will go up significantly.
So,
right?
Director?
That cost includes construction. It does not include engineering, phase 2 or phase 3 engineering, but it does have a placeholder for right-of-way, but it's only for the required right-of-way. It wouldn't be for the entire lot.
Just a section of it.
Correct.
Kinda
Just
like
what
they
would be
did
needed to accommodate this design.
Kind of like they did at Title Max, when the state had to buy a piece of their easement. Any other questions?
So just
Follow-up?
as a follow-up, so this $166,000, that's not the complete cost of
No.
alternative one at
Not
all?
even close.
No, you would
Not even,
You would likely include an additional probably 12 to 15% for engineering costs, and then any additional land acquisition that would be required.
okay, thank you.
Alderman Jacob?
So, just to clarify, if we went with option one and found out it was too expensive, we could always choose to go to option, the least expensive option, which would be the dead-ended, correct?
I suppose, yeah, the council can do whatever they wish.
Jeff, I know legal's not here. How would that work?
I got a question.
Well, I don't necessarily think that would work, because if you start the design work, then the design work is done, so then it wouldn't make any
spend the
sense.
money.
So while that is very generous of Alderman Woods, I have a feeling that it would set us up for a fail down the road. And I truly, and I believe you do, I think, have the right intent. We just need it blocked off. And that my intent from the beginning, while I appreciate running through all those scenarios, is it just needs to be blocked off. And that cheapest option of five, excuse me, I'm looking at 5, the dead end, excuse me, of 47. Also, just to be clear, does not provide the turnaround, which, again, that's more of an inconvenience for the township. Sorry, don't care, but what about land acquisition with that option? That would be minimal. Yes, go ahead.
The one key point to remember, like I said before, a minor inconvenience for the township might mean them not going for the project at all because they don't want that inconvenience.
That's fair.
The township would likely need to dedicate right-of-way to the city to accommodate any design. So we would need their,
Any design, regardless.
correct.
Okay.
And they would have to grant us easements, on Second Avenue for temporary construction, and then permanent right-of-way they would have to dedicate.
Mayor?
And so listening to that just now. So, okay, the township is one, but the garbage trucks come in, they're gonna start backing up into those 2 or 3 homes. There's 2 on one side and
You got 2.
2 on the
You got
south,
2, you got
right,
1.
and one, the other one faces 83, I think.
It's on 83, yep.
So the garbage truck backs into the people's driveway. Maybe they have a problem with it, maybe not.
Can't they
Two
bring it to
homes,
the
isn't
Correct.
there 4 there? 1,
Sure
2,
they could.
3, 4. 4 homes, right?
Everybody
Yeah.
else does.
Everybody else does, right? And so that's, when I had that conversation with Elmer, that is exactly what they do, and there didn't seem to be any issues. Yes, probably it's a little convenient from the reverse, but there didn't seem to be any issues. Okay, Alderman Woods, then I'll go back to you.
I just wanted to point out that we're going into another community, unincorporated property, asking to take their stuff to make somebody else's life better, perceivably. That we should look at the impact on those people also. It's like we're kind of glossing over the fact that those 4 people who own property there are being impacted also. They might not view it as positively as yourself. I'm not picking a side, I'm just saying
All right.
that it's part of the thought process in doing a better job, right, being the better neighbor. You want something from me, but then you just want to leave me a pile of sticks and plow up the snow at the end, and the hell with me.
Yeah.
So, just a little food for thought when we're thinking about it. Secondly, well, did anybody look at, so when you look at Spruce, now that you, theoretically, if you close that Second Street off, right? So now you have a longer Spruce, dead-end Spruce Avenue. Doesn't that trigger a turnaround at the end of that also? I thought when I looked at this before, under the MUDCO or IDOT rules, that you also needed a turnaround at the end of that, just because of the length of the street. You could probably tell me how many houses are left?
There's
from
one house and
Second.
one on-
Are there 3 houses over here, or?
There's one house on the north side that is actually on Second, and one on 83. And then there's 2 on the south side of the street, and one on 83. So technically, 3 houses that actually are on Second.
Right, just the ones,
Yeah.
just the ones that are
So-
left on Spruce. How many are here? Are there 3 houses left on this to the end? I thought?
4.
Five?
4.
Four.
Lucania,
So
Moringa.
4, when I looked at that, I
4.
thought triggered a turnaround since you close off that street, because now you're lengthening that dead end, where before.
There's a turnaround. There's a cul-de-sac on the bottom here, at the end of the street where those 5 houses are. That's where you guys all turn around now.
Right, you're talking about Spruce Road, there's a cul-de-sac at the southern end, yes.
Yeah, so those guys, so that's what I meant when they were talking about turnarounds. There's, yeah, they never turn around there anyhow.
I
Other
should
than,
drive by more often.
you know.
What do the residents want?
The residents just want to feel safe. While I love his option and I'm appreciative of his generosity, what I don't want it to do is get killed later, and speed to get this done, because it is summertime. I don't know how this works, but I think 4 provides us a safer bet of getting this done and not having to spend money on easements. He's got a very fair point.
4 or 5?
5, I keep saying 4, excuse me, 5 with the dead end. I mean, it's essentially, the research I did was focused on that, because I knew it was the cheapest option, and I knew that it had been done in another town and effectively been done, and it legitimately stops anybody from 83 coming into that Elmhurst part right after North Avenue. I guess we would take a vote. I guess, can I just clarify with you, Jeff? The dead end option, overall cost, because that's what I'm concerned about, is this actually getting done? And Peter, I'm sure, sorry, I didn't mean to say me. Would the dead end require property to be acquired? Or, like any property from, I know we have to get the easement.
Talking option 5?
5, the dead end, the cheapest one.
There may be some.
Just the right of ways, but that's from the township.
It may be a portion.
Compared to the other options where there's additional.
It's more elaborate.
Chairman?
Sorry.
There would be temporary construction easements that would be required. There would likely be no fee for those. However, we would need right-of-way likely dedicated from the township. There is an existing right-of-way along Spruce Road, which extends 33 feet from the center line to the east. However, we would need to acquire beyond that, as the township may require that we assume maintenance responsibility for the dead end, and they likely would. So I would imagine that there is a right-of-way dedication need, and then it would be subject to fair market value.
Which Aunt Bensonville was doing for a while, and then went back to Idot, which that was a nightmare in itself, if you remember that island, that pork chop. So they've been always all over the place on who maintains it and why. So I'm sure they'd be happy to do it, but, okay. Sorry, go ahead, Alderman.
To Alderman, I'll go with Nadine, her point being that of all the options up there, there's always going to be additional cost. Option 5, the additional cost will be as affordable as the starting price of $47,000, where the other will involve the engineering and all the other stuff that could double, possibly double what the price shown is. So even if ludicrously this doubles, we're still under 100,000.
And could we take this plan, before we spend money on engineering, could we take option 5, dead end, to the township first to say, this is what they're, like, we wouldn't have to spend any money, right? We could ask them, like, this is what they
Right.
went.
No engineering cost.
Yeah, no engineering, just say, would you agree to this, and I guess, whatever y'all do, gentleman's handshake.
Yeah, we've spoken about the,
So my idea 3 months ago,
we've spoken with the,
I just had to say.
the township about all of the alternatives, and I guess if the council wanted to proceed with exploring alternative 5, we could approach them and involve the city attorney as to what right-of-way needs and what legal documents would be required
'Cause we can
to
always
proceed before going into phase 2 and 3 engineering.
Yeah. We can always go back with Art's option as well, if we had to and reconvene. Yeah. Okay, so do we, go ahead, Alderman.
You almost forgot about me.
Sorry.
So I'm just gonna go back to what you said about your residents and your ward just wanna feel safe. I would say that's fair to say that everybody in Waddell wants to be safe. So just to kind of remind us, why are we looking to do this in the first place? Like, what is the main reason that this has come up?
I can give you some bullets. I didn't know
Just
that.
bullets, like.
Yeah, so quick bullets, because otherwise I have video footage that I could show you. So the net of it is, because of the location, we're literally, they're on the corner of 83 and Oak Meadows. We're how many yards, maybe a football field from 290? From 2nd Street. If someone dumps out on the 2nd Street, they're what, 2 football fields away from 290?
Wherever you consider that merge to start.
Okay, right front, quarter mile, there, better yet. So very, very close locale, right? And so when we've sat and talked about other developments around 83, that's always been our concern, right? Even that corner, which if that corner had been developed or ever was developed, this, I believe, would have inevitably happened anyhow, if there was a gas station there. To go back to your points and bullets, 1, 7 out of the last 9 homes sold have had have kids now. So I would say of the 85 homes, I would say probably at least a third, if not half now, have kids, which is amazing turnaround. But also there are adults walking. There are no sidewalks. As the chief has been privy, there has been multiple examples of cars speeding and knocking down mailboxes. We had one not too long ago where a gal literally went around this curve, which there's been no, we've asked them the radar 100 times in there.
Okay, so have you had like excessive crime in your ward versus other wards?
Yeah, in that subdivision, so I guess, yeah, so that's why I wanted them here, because I didn't want to speak for the impact statements. So last Christmas Day, Eve, whatever it was, my neighbor was burglarized. They stole 2 guns. I had the other neighbor to the other side, had their cars ransacked. We've had burglary across the pond from us. We've had numerous ruse scams, right?
I feel like there's crime everywhere, and I mean, just by closing off a road or a section of a road from Route 83, is that the answer? Ward 4 is off of 83 as well.
Well, the
We've
big
got
thing-
Wooddell Road, we've got
Chief can answer
390. So you start
It's the
closing
horseshoe.
off every
And that's-
possible way to get in there, and traffic flow. Once commercial was closed to turn to go eastbound, Stoneham has picked up so much traffic. You talk about traffic and people walking and I mean, the bad guys around, I mean, there's, you know.
There's only one way in and out, like there would be a horseshoe. So if that was closed off, which essentially everyone still to this day, there's only, the president is the only one that knows. They don't know why that was not closed off. There is a horseshoe. So you would literally go one way in, one way out. And if you knew where you were going, you could get off into Butternut, which would lead you west into like another subdivision, right? So it would very much, as far as the flow, it would just be a horseshoe. One way in, one way out. Unless you knew where you're going, you could flow back into another subdivision. So Second Street truly has no purpose. Most subdivisions have 2 exits. We have 3. This truly serves no purpose at all. I think I covered all your concerns, but there's a running concern. I told you, I think the ruses, the unlocked doors as early as last week, the multiple home burglaries where guns were stolen, all the kids, all the walkers, and then of course being close to 83, all those challenges.
So do you guys want to put sidewalks in?
I've tried that.
It's an HOA thing, isn't it?
What we want, no, it's not in our bylaws. We would,
They
yeah,
don't want them, I heard, right?
we never did a reconstruction to even bring that up.
But subdivisions, homeowners usually would put in their sidewalks. They don't just,
Yeah, we've never gotten to a reconstruction.
Obviously, they
phase
didn't
to
wanna
even bring
build it that
up.
way.
I mean, that is the number one
Saving
concern.
money.
A lot of the, I know younger families have, is that they're realizing when they bought homes there that there are no sidewalks, including my wife, that is super dangerous, right? Truly, having that horseshoe effect, it really changes the dynamic because we have, which is the point I didn't mention, is probably the most important, is the cut through traffic. So if you were to sit there on a busy day, if I don't want to wait for the light to go right on Oak Meadows, I can't tell you the number of cars that turn right and cut through.
I have that right on my street as well.
You could,
I have
right.
it on my street also.
Yep.
Right, so you
Every
know,
street has
yeah.
cut-throughs, so.
100%. What you don't have is a horseshoe, right? Where you're in and you're only in one way and you're, in and out one way. So if anybody's doing anything nefarious, you're gonna get caught. Either you're coming in and you only gotta go out one other way. There's no other way, right? And that's why this is a different scenario. If you have that scenario, I can guarantee you right here, you would have my vote if it made sense. I'm telling you that if we block this off, if you went back to the map, a broader map, an aerial map, you would see would literally cause a horseshoe only. In one way, out another way. If we could ever,
Are residents complaining like yours?
I don't know, are your residents complaining like ours?
Mine are.
Yeah.
I can give you 5 streets off
Yeah.
Irving Park Road.
And then there's something we need to,
The chief
yeah,
can give you the numbers.
yeah, and if it makes sense, location-wise, right? Absolutely bring it forward, as Alderman Sorrentino said, bring it forward, and we look at it.
Well, we currently are doing a traffic study with our speed cameras and
Yeah.
trying to get traffic flow, so absolutely.
Yeah, please
We're
bring it.
very concerned.
Yeah, just like Alderman Sorrentino brought forward all the streetlight stuff. You know, I wasn't quite on board until he brought up a lot of that stuff. People bring it forward, great, we put the streetlights. I mean, that's why I'm bringing it forward, because this has just been reoccurring. We did get a streetlight, that was part 1, because there was no streetlights, because there were so many walkers, that happened to pass, thank God, it was, whatever it was, 10,000, but it makes a huge difference, but now it's also multiplied the number of walkers and families in there. And so now, the good thing is if this is blocked off, it literally will just be a horseshoe, in and out.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. Alderman Jacob?
Yeah, just to Alderman Messina. So this kind of started out maybe 3 years ago at a homeowners meeting. You know, the homeowners brought up some of the concerns. Randy brought up safety. Again, it's a big circle in there, and there's just a lot of cars there. You know, like I know by your house, it's all streets going east and west and north and south. So, I mean, it's a little bit harder to block off, you know. I mean, this is just a circle, and they still have 2 ways to get out. So, I mean, it's more of an inconvenience, to be honest with you, for the residents that live in this subdivision than anything, but, you know, the safety concerns that are what brought it up.
Alderman Sismarski?
Geez, do you have a study that shows a breakdown of occurrences in this town? That would show this area being more so than any other part of town? Having break-in, I mean, we've had a whole rash of break-ins in my ward, walking up and down the streets, people opening the car doors.
Sure, so if you did a part 1 crime analysis, which is the major crimes, and you did a heat map overlay, probably you're not gonna see this area being any hotter than any other location of town. Actually, Irving Park is probably our hottest area, you know, certainly I could come back with that information as far as a display of Part 1 crimes for like a 6-month or a 1-year period to show the areas of town, but just being honest, it's not any hotter than any other part of town, in my opinion. Just looking at the data I've looked at, but I could come back with additional detailed data on that.
Jeff, I thought you said that data wasn't available.
I'm just gonna back up for 1 second, I got a secondary.
Sorry,
No,
sir.
I said there was no way to correlate people turning off that street doing crimes. That's what I
Okay,
said.
okay.
The second half is to Peter Jacob, is that you say that our streets all go straight, but up and down, doesn't matter. It does. This is city money. This isn't just your money. It's not anything you want it done. We're trying to get stuff done too. We just don't know how to figure it out. So all this money up here, this is not just what it is. This is probably gonna be double, triple that, guarantee you. This is not it.
We're
This-
spending 50,000 on trucks. I mean, we're talking about life safety, and if you bring it forward.
And I
just
get
like-
it, and we're spending $2,500 on brand new cameras that are state of the art that we're gonna stop.
Right, but that's reactive. And
It
again,
is reactive.
I'm
Just-
100% in support of, 100% of support if you guys are to bring something forward that made sense as far as trying to block it off constructively. Absolutely, you deal with the same issues we do, with people
I got
coming
Central
out on
Avenue,
83.
I have Central Avenue, which you guys refuse to put through your ward, which comes through my ward, and it filters out, how many? 1,500 cars a day? Maybe 800 cars a day, 400 of them are out of Tumco alone. So, I mean, they come right through my ward speeding, and we don't have any way to stop it. We can't just put a barricade up and say, go the other way, go down to Foster.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I'll have to check the data, verify. It's at least 800 cars.
Easily.
We're doing a speed
With no
awareness
stop sign.
thing on Stoneham right now, so, but I don't have set numbers, but I could look those up.
So there is a traffic study that's happening currently for that.
Correct.
Okay. So that opportunity exists.
Runs from
Okay.
Foster to Irving.
I have no idea, we have their hands up first, I guess, Mayor?
Out of the industrial park
Mayor?
comes down.
Are we done on that?
One of them. What's it?
We're done?
I guess, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So the chief, you put those reports out at least once, maybe twice a year. It gives all the crimes in the city and marks it all down. So it's not like we gotta do a new study. It's done already, correct?
So, no, I can go into our report writing system. What it's gonna show is location of Part 1 crimes. It's not gonna show where they originated from. I mean, many of the crimes we don't know, but I can do a plot map of, let's say, a year of Part 1 crimes in town, and I could do a plot map of, you know, domestics in town by address too, you know. I can pull that data if I need to. I won't know what roads they were coming off of.
Right, right. I mean, my house got hit 3 times, so it is what it is.
I didn't find anything the first time, that's why.
That's-
I was hoping you had
I don't
something
leave
second
anything in
time.
the cars. So, we're getting off subject. a little
Alderman
bit.
Woods?
Let's stick to the
Okay.
subject.
I'm calling the question.
Okay. Alderman Jacob, and that's the last question.
Yeah,
There's
just,
nothing after calling the question.
Oh, there's not.
It's calling the question. We're voting.
If everybody's spoken, then.
So would the motioner,
I think everybody's spoken. We're going in a circle now.
has the motioner, would you agree to amend your motion to number 5?
I would not.
Okay, so we will start with your motion. Can you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Ames,
No.
Alderman Curriello,
No.
Alderman Jacob,
no.
Alderman Messina,
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino,
No.
Alderman Sismarski,
No.
Alderman Woods.
No.
So that motion fails. The motioner's motion fails. There's another motion on the floor for option 5.
I don't think I had a second.
Yeah, no second.
I'll second that. And so questions again, go ahead, Alderman Woods.
Now, I just want to go to a couple basic ones because I don't know how we got here, but so you gotta get a petition and get 50 signatures, maybe I'm exaggerating, 25, to get a street light. What do you do to close down your street?
We have no existing policy for closing down a street that I'm aware of.
Because we don't.
Side street,
So-
yeah. We had a petition that was brought
To-
forward, the
To
majority of,
close down the street?
that were in favor of closing down that street, yes, that
Where
inlet.
where
Yep.
did you get that petition?
That was a year and a half ago when we started this,
Was there,
at HOA.
I don't have.
The homeowner association?
Yeah, you were at the meeting.
It was it was more than a year and a half ago, 'cause it was before COVID, I think.
Yeah. And then, and everybody on that block being affected, again, the inconvenience factor, everybody was in favor of it because of the risk. The benefits outweighed the risks.
Call the question.
Okay. So we have a motion for option 5, alternative 5, which is the least expensive at $47,250, and there is a second.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Ames,
No.
Alderman Currielli,
No.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Messina,
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
No.
Alderman Woods.
no.
And that fails.
And that's 2 hours.
There you go. So we can just keep making motions all night. So go ahead, Jeff.
Just for clarity, we can make some more motions, but I also want you guys to know that on items like this, typically, because it did fail committee, it's not going to advance to council. Only like PZB items that require legal council action would
I
advance.
know, that was why this was by design.
Okay.
There's no.
I'm
I-
just noting that.
Yeah. So for those watching at home, this will not come, so which means those can the motion, or rather, can the, I guess the clerk, secretary, would you please read back then, if this is failing, right, and this can't go back, those that initially were not in favor of tabling, I can ask her to repeat it, to not table, I'm the chairman, right? That were not in favor of
If you wanna play-
tabling this
If
topic.
you want to play bully, I voted no.
That's fine. Can you please read back the responses of those that voted no to table it?
Alderman Ames, Alderman Currielli, Alderman Sismarski, Alderman Woods.
Okay, and then those that were in favor?
Alderman Jacob, Alderman Messina, Alderman Sorrentino.
Okay. Okay, anything else, Jeff, as far as procedure goes?
There might be a way for reconsideration on a committee item. I'd have to talk with legal counsel on that, but I'm not quite sure. I just know that it wouldn't automatically advance for another vote at council.
There's a time, yeah.
Special assessment.
Well, right. So, we will be wrapping up that topic. As chairman, I guess I could say I'm very, very disappointed in my colleagues for not giving an opportunity for the residents that we support the entire city, and sadly, not giving our residents the opportunity to speak up here. I'm actually mortified, to be honest with you. Go ahead.
They can still come and speak at a council meeting about the project, and council has
You know what?
reconsidered projects in the past, so
You know,
that's
I
also
feel-
an option. They can still come in.
I can't get it for myself, so I'm not gonna approve it. When you're looking at a major life safety risks, and honestly, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Sorry, that's how I feel. We'll move on. Items to be considered at future meetings. Road program, July 14th. City sign purchases, July 14th. Any other items? Future items? All right, is there a motion to, I'll make that motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.